Hey everybody, welcome to what I hope will be an ongoing feature here on Stories of the Great War, and that would be a chance to share with you some book recommendations, either books that I've read on a particular topic that I want to recommend, or books that I'm in the middle of reading and I'm just really excited about and want to talk a little more about. I've been asked for quite some time over on my main channel, Vlogging Through History, to talk about book recommendations. So this is the first of those opportunities to talk about books that I've read that I think would be very beneficial for your own journey in discovering the history of the Great War, World War I. Now, to this point, my primary focus has been the Western Front, not only because that was the front where my own nation did most of the fighting that it was involved in, but also because those are the places that I've visited so far. Eventually, I very much intend to expand my learning to the Italian front, to Serbia, to the Middle East, to Africa, to the war on the ocean, to the Eastern Front. All of these places where fighting was going on, where there are stories to be told. And we will be focusing on this channel on stories from those places. So don't feel like just because my focus right now is heavily Western Front that it's always and exclusively only going to be that way. So I want to start with what I think is the perfect book for someone who maybe is coming to the history of the Great War and saying, you know what, I don't know a lot, or I know the basics, but I want to really kind of understand it. The great place to start is a book called A World Undone by G.J. Meyer. Now, I did this one on audiobook. I travel a lot, so I listen to books whenever I'm traveling. And this is a massive book, but it's fantastic. And I'll put up, either show the books in my hand or put up images so you can see what they look like. I'm also going to be putting links down in the description to all of these books on Amazon. Not saying you have to buy them there, and I'm not getting any money for it. I don't have any referral links or anything like that. I should do that. But at least that way you can see what book I'm talking about. And if you do like audiobooks, I use Audible. You know, sometimes the narration can make or break how good the audiobook is, and the person who does the narration for A World Undone is perfect. The tone, the voice, everything, it fits that topic to a T. So I highly recommend that experience if you do audiobooks. But however you do it, G.J. Meyer does a fantastic job of giving the big picture. I mean, goes into the events that led to the war in the first place, explores the diplomatic crisis that spiraled out of control in the summer of 1914, gives background into some of the important players, gives little biographies of them, talks about the weapons, talks about the industry, talks about the home front, and of course talks about all of the major theaters of war. I think it's a fantastic, comprehensive look at everything in such a way that I think it's easy to digest. I've gone through it twice. I'm going to do it a third time this spring, just so this stuff stays fresh in my mind and maybe I get some things out of it I didn't get the first time. Cannot recommend that one to you enough. If you're familiar with the channel The Great War, which if you're not and you're interested in this topic, that's definitely a channel to check out. They quote G.J. Meyer's book all the time on that channel. That's how good it is. So can't recommend that one to you enough. All right, so if you're somebody who wants to take a little deeper dive, I've got a few recommendations of some books that I've been reading recently that I think help with that a lot. One of the things you're going to find as you get into the study of the Great War is that a lot of places have different pronunciations depending on who you're talking to. So a prime example of that is one of the major theaters of the war for the British Empire. And by the Empire, I mean not only the British, the English, the Scottish, the Welsh, the Irish, but also the ANZACs, Australia New Zealand Army Corps. ANZAC, that's what it stands for. Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, all of the Empire nations, Canada, they all had presence in what we call the Ypres salient, Y-P-R-E-S. That is a French spelling of a word that in French is, I think, pronounced Ypres or Ypres, like that. But they don't speak French in Ypres. They speak Flemish, which is a dialect of Dutch. And for Flemish speakers, the natives of that place, they spell it I-E-P-E-R, and they pronounce it Ypres, like E-E-P-E-R. So I go with that just because it's their spelling and their pronunciation. Ypres was on all the maps, so that was how they spelled it. The British, though, they called it wipers. And because of that, there's a fantastic book that I just picked up recently. This is a 1930 publication of the Wipers Times. It's a compilation of that publication. So the Wipers Times, because the British were in the Ypres salient for most of the war, and a lot of soldiers fought there, they had a regular publication that went to the troops on the front lines or in the behind the scenes areas. And it was stuff written by the troops. There was poetry written by the troops and stories from the front and stories about the enemy. And it was just a way of keeping the morale up, keeping them connected to what was going on. And that book I just picked up has all of the editions of the Wipers Times in one place. It's a fascinating look at what the troops themselves were seeing and talking about during the war itself. And it was published in 1930, so it's a pretty close to when it happened kind of thing. If you want to learn more about the Ypres salient and the battles that took place there, you'll hear about battles like Passchendaele or Messines Ridge. These are part of the Ypres salient. There's a great book by Winston Groom, same guy who wrote Forrest Gump, believe it or not, called A Storm in Flanders, that I read before my first trip to Ypres. I'm going back there in May. So it's a really good book that kind of gives you a good summary of all of the battles that took place in and around that salient where there were millions of casualties. Another great book that covers a lot of that stuff is one that was sent to me by a woman named Trish, who is one of the viewers of Vlogging Through History, and she's from Australia, and that one's called Anzacs, again, Australia and New Zealand Army Corps. Anzacs on the Western Front. The Anzacs were ridiculously important on the Western Front and not only contributed as much as anyone, but also suffered maybe more than just about anyone. Something like half of all the Australian soldiers who fought on the Western Front ended up killed, wounded, missing, or captured by the end of the war. That shows you a little bit of what they had to do. And they fought in some of the toughest places in the war. And they did so coming literally from the other side of the planet to do it. But this is not only a great history of the Anzacs, it's also a battlefield guide. So it's something I can take with me when I go to these places, and it'll show you, I'll just show you an example there, it'll show you what the battlefield looks like today and talk about this is what happened in this exact spot. And here's a picture of what it looked like in 1915. Here's what it looks like today. Here's where this unit was, and here's where this unit was. And it's such a fantastic guide to these units and where they fought and what happened there. And I'm going to be using this book extensively when I'm making content in the Ypres salient coming up in May for this channel. So when you start seeing those videos, this will be the reason why I was able to do a lot of that. This one's really unique, but as you take deeper dives into the stories of the Great War, you're going to find yourself interested in stuff like this. This one's called Photographing the Fallen, a war graves photographer on the Western Front, 1915 to 1919, by Jeremy Gordon Smith. And what this does is this follows the story of the men whose job it was to be a part of what was called the Graves Registration Unit. These were the people who had to go, even while the fighting was still going on, and register the graves and record who was buried where and oversee the exhumation and reburial in many cases of these men who died, and help with the identification process. And again, it's got a ton of pictures taken at the time, as well as pictures of what things look like today. So in a lot of places you can see what some of these cemeteries look like. Like here's Essex Farm, which I did a video on. It's not up on this channel yet, but will be soon. It's over on Vlogging Through History. But Essex Farm is where the poem In Flanders Fields was written in the Ypres salient. And that shows what it looked like then. And you can stand there and see what it looks like now. And it's got diary entries for war graves registration people. It's got photos of actual exhumations, which I won't show here because I don't want to get demonetized. I'm not monetized on this channel yet, but eventually I will be. And I don't want to get demonetized, but it really is a very powerful look at a difficult task that had to be done and was done admirably by people who weren't fighting on the front lines, but were making sure that the men who did were cared for as best as they could be. Powerful book, and I definitely recommend that one. This is going to be a regular feature on the channel, so I will be doing more of these, and if you have particular recommendations of books you think I should be checking out or you want other people to know about, use the comment section below and let people know what those are. Also want to let you know a couple of things. One is, I've been asked by a number of people already whether or not I'm going to have a separate Patreon for this channel, because the expectation is that as this channel grows, the audience, while it will overlap between Vlogging Through History and Stories of the Great War, we will also develop unique audiences for the two channels. People that are on one but don't follow the other, and vice versa. And so I have gone ahead and set up a Patreon for this channel. If you're already supporting me on Vlogging Through History, don't feel any obligation or need to do so here as well. But if you want to do that, I'm keeping it pretty simple for this channel, and I'll put a link down in the description so you can sign up for that. It'll have some similar perks to the other one, but not as many things going on that one, on this one. Also, some original content. You're going to continue to see videos that I'm repurposing, videos that previously had gone up on Vlogging Through History that are original content concerning the Great War. That's all eventually going to be moved to this channel, and some of those are already going up. But also in the next week or two, you're going to be seeing some of the first original content that is exclusive to this channel. One is a video following in the footsteps of the 38th Welsh Division, who had to assault Mamet Wood in July of 1916 at the Somme. It was a video I shot this summer when I was in France, so you'll be able to see that and see where they fought and what happened there and hear their story. Also, some in-studio original content shot right here where I'm sitting right now, concerning one of the highest scoring flying aces of the Great War, and that is Billy Bishop from Canada. We're going to be telling his story here on the channel in the next couple of weeks. I've just about finished the research on that, and we're going to start recording probably this weekend. So thanks for all of your support. If you have not already subscribed, I hope that you'll consider doing that. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.